To be absolutely honest with you, I don't much like the government. I didn't like the last one, and I certainly don't like this one. And once all of this is over, just to reassure you, I probably will continue not to like it very much. However, and it pains me to say that, I think that the measures that the government is taking to deal with the coronavirus are probably the right ones. It also pains me to say this, but I think that the things that they're asking us to do and to not do are probably the right things, at least for now. That doesn't mean to say that we're not going to find it difficult, because I think we are. It breaks my heart that we're not all here able to celebrate Mass this weekend, especially on Mother's Day. It breaks my heart to stand at the school gates and see the parents picking up their children, not knowing when they'll be back again. It breaks my heart when I think of our young people who've been working so hard for their GCSEs and A-levels, when I think of those who are going to be struggling with loneliness, and when I think of those whose jobs and businesses are now in serious danger. As a priest, to build community, to connect people, is very much at the core of my role. And so to not be able to gather people and to have to take precautions in meeting with parishioners goes very much against the grain. And I'm sure each one of us will have different things that we're going to struggle with, especially at the moment. The question that I think we need to ask is why? Why are we doing these things? Why are we taking these sometimes painful measures? And the answer is simply to save lives. And to save lives especially of the poorest and the weakest and the most vulnerable in our society. It's not just about flattening the curve. It's not just about protecting the NHS, although those things are important. But fundamentally, it's about making sure that people don't die who don't need to die. And when you think of it that way, everything else falls into place. In the Catholic Church, there's two phrases that we sometimes use. One of them is called being pro-life. To be pro-life is to stand up for the equal dignity of every single human being, no matter what. There's something wonderfully pro-life about doing everything possible to take care of our most vulnerable neighbours. The other phrase we sometimes use is called the option for the poor. The option for the poor is when we choose as a society to put the poorest and the weakest and the most vulnerable first. We don't do that very often, as mostly it's everyone for themselves and it's the survival of the fittest. But I think it's absolutely fantastic that throughout the world now, we are not doing that, except that is in Tesco's. In the Gospel today, we hear the story of Jesus healing the blind man. Jesus is dealing with two kinds of blindness. There's the blindness of the man who's been blind from birth, but is nevertheless able to recognize who Jesus is. And there is the blindness of the Pharisees, who have nothing wrong with their eyesight, but who refuse to see what's right in front of them. Despite the tragedies and the hardships that we will probably be facing, there is some graces that are certainly available to us from God, should we be open to them. One of them is that God will surely open our eyes to see things differently now. That he will open our eyes to see that we're all connected to each other and that we depend on each other. That he will open our eyes to see that those whose lives and whose jobs we take for granted, we actually need to keep us alive. That he will open our eyes to see that happiness lies not in grand plans and in great luxuries, but in the simple pleasures of life and in the people who we would normally meet every day. That he will open our eyes to see that our faith is not just an added extra, but it's the very rock of who we are. That he will open our eyes to see that there is a lesson to be learned in not rushing all over the place, but in slowing down and stopping and taking stock and in being still. People are sometimes saying at the moment that they feel it's as if the world has gone mad. I can understand that, but I disagree. There's nothing mad in doing everything we can to put other people's lives first. Some of the generosity and the selflessness and the kindness that I've seen over the last few days, and the ways in which we're prepared to do everything to safeguard those who are most in need, says to me the contrary, that the world is coming to its senses.